Thank you for joining me for today's live. I decided today to talk about a mishmash of things. And before I start, I want to introduce myself. My name is Djanie-Hair. I am an advanced hair, scalp and skin practitioner here in Leicester in the UK, and I help people look after themselves and fix their hair, scalp and skin. Any concerns that they have that is of a problem to them, any hair loss and hair shaft disorders, I help them to solve those issues. I also help professionals within the space to perfect their services and treatments that they offer within their businesses. And I also want to caveat that I am not a doctor, I'm not a GP, I am not your doctor either. And so the advice or the videos and the live that I come here to do is for educational purposes and for you to just get to know a little bit about this space. But if you're experiencing any issues whatsoever, you must consult your GP. Okay, so today I want to start by talking about some nutritional things today, because that has such an impact on how our hair grows, how our skin is, and overall wellness. And I think that it's a subject that I love so much. And it always comes back each time we do, I see patients or we do diagnosis and things like that. Nutrition tends to always come back into the mix. So it's important to talk about it. Today, we'll be discussing the impact of nutrition and the value of food. I won't be digging too deep into it, but I just want to make sure that we cover some things that are most people aren't aware of. I've noticed that most people are not aware of within my space and the areas that I work in, for example. So that's the hair, scalp and skin, right? So I want to start by talking about nutrients and its absorption and what hinders the absorption of nutrients. So when we take food, it's important to realize that fundamentally the initial purpose of eating is to... My sister's just sneezed. Bless you. No, thank you. So when we eat, we intend to have that as the first building block of making sure that we are well. It is to make us feel well. It's nice the food tastes good. It's nice that we enjoy eating, but we eat to repair, to restore, to ensure that we are feeding our bodies well enough that it travels to the outsides of our bodies so that we can get that beautifying effect of the nutrients that we're consuming. So hair, scalp and skin benefits from a highly nutritious diet. So when we eat highly nutritious foods, it helps in the fact that initially our bodies and our organs will absorb and take away the majority of those nutrients first, and whatever is left over goes over to our hair, scalp and skin. So it's important that we're eating adequately nutritious food, or the nutrients of our foods should be abundant enough for any to be left over to feed our hair, scalp and skin. Also, what we eat that affects our bodies may also affect our hair, scalp and skin. So when you're eating certain things and you're noticing a reaction, it is important to keep an eye on those things to make sure that you aren't experiencing adverse reaction from the foods and things that you take. I'm just looking for something, and just so that I can talk about iron and things like that. Okay, so nutrients and habits that we do. The habits that we form for ourselves can hinder the absorption of nutrients from our food. Things like smoking. Smoking breaks down the collagen in the skin. Okay, so one cigarette a day steals about 50 to 150 milligrams of vitamin C in your body. Vitamin C is brilliant in the fact that it helps to support collagen production. It's an antioxidant, so it helps to look after the skin and make sure that the skin is refreshed. It's also great in helping smooth down the skin surfaces and fade away some hyperpigmentation issues and concerns. And so if you're smoking and you're having a depletion in your absorption of vitamin C, inherently when you're eating vitamin C and you're not absorbing it well because tobacco steals away a large amount of that, then you're not going to get the benefits of your vitamin C intake, for example. So just be mindful of that. So if you're taking vitamins, just know that if you're taking vitamins and smoking at the same time, there is a high chance that you're depleting the international unit value that you have on that vitamin you're ingesting. Okay, I spoke about sleep today because I had taken a massive nap today because my body needed it. I have got a huge pile of laundry sitting and I can see it here, but I decided to forgo dealing with that and take rest. I wanted to talk about rest today because of what it does to you and the fact that it repairs your body slowly, and you need more of sleep to be able to do that for you, to repair and rejuvenate and give you that restorative feeling that you need to get those cells to start working efficiently. I speak about alcohol a lot within the space, within my clinic, because of the fact that it also inhibits the breakdown of enzymes and vitamins by destroying the enzymes within our body, within the stomach. Okay, so alcohol is a diuretic and it inhibits vitamin breakdown within our bodies by destroying the enzymes within our stomach. So alcohol, smoking, not getting enough sleep, these are things that will not help you in making sure that your nutrients are absorbed properly. Okay, antibiotics, for example, also has an effect on gut health. So when we have clients and patients come in and we need to treat them for skin, we have to tackle the biotics, the probiotics, the postbiotics, and the prebiotics of their gut to make sure that we settle any inflammation before we start treatment. But antibiotics tend to affect that for us. So we wait until you've finished taking your antibiotics, then we start treatment to make sure that we're absorbing all the nutrients that we need. Caffeine is a tricky one because people take caffeine quite frequently and they don't realize that it is also a diuretic. So it behaves similarly to alcohol. So teas and coffees that are caffeinated speeds up the excretion of vitamins, for example. So when you've taken your vitamins, we want them to work slowly. We want them to, we need a slow release of those vitamins. And so if you've got caffeine and alcohol speeding up that excretion of those vitamins. So excretion is when those vitamins are exiting your body. So they've done their work and they're exiting your body. And if this is going to be sped up, we're not going to grab hold of those nutrients and the nutritional value of the vitamins that we've taken. So we need to make sure that we take teas and coffees at least an hour before we start taking any vitamins. Okay, so for example, iron will be inhibited by caffeine. So if you're taking iron, you need to be very careful of that. Okay, so if you have poor gut health, we find that patients are not having nutrients delivered properly into the areas of their bodies. And so we make sure that gut health is very important to us. I just wanted to go back to that to make sure that that is happening. Gut health is very, very important. Then we want to talk about poor diet. We are all guilty of eating the things that we shouldn't eat. I enjoy a good donut on a good day. I do like to have some sweet things, and I'm fully aware that these are the effects that it would have on my body. But it's about balance, isn't it? Just making sure that we've got a nice balance of good and some treats and some every so often. It's not a problem. So what does a poor diet do to our bodies? It damages our DNA, and it degrades the collagen within our bodies, and it destroys vitamins. So as much as you've eaten something great in the morning, if you're finishing that with a poor consumption of something else, you are degrading that collagen and also destroying the vitamins that you've just had. Okay, then I want to speak about stress, and how it affects the digestive system, and so on and so forth. So stress, as we know, does not help with hair loss and some skin ailments. So where you find that you're experiencing acne skin and certain issues such as fine lines and wrinkles because you're just not absorbing enough nutrients, and as a result of stress you won't be able to absorb the things that your digestive system should be absorbing. So you're eating great, but you're stressed out, and so those nervous systems are not working appropriately. We find that the digestive system becomes compromised, and we will require more of the vitamin B complexes to help us to absorb nutrients properly. Okay, so I'm just going to read some studies that have found results in some things that we do that stops absorption of nutrients. So a study found that drinking a cup of coffee with a hamburger meal reduces iron absorption by 39%. So iron is very important to hair growth, and I will be discussing that later, because we'll be talking about how to make sure that we grow hair, good quality hair, the things to do to grow hair. And iron is so important, in that, because it is what feeds the nutrients of the hair bulb, which is at the bottom of the hair follicle. I'm going to bring my trusted model here again. So when the hair is being fed, it has got blood and nutrients going to it right at the bottom, right there. So we've got the blue and the red, which are the oxygenated and deoxygenated blood that's feeding the hair. So when you pluck a hair out, for example, and you see a matter that is right at the end, this is it. Okay, this is where you plucked it out of. And that means that it was attached to nutrients. It was still being fed, but it has been plucked out of that pocket. Okay. And so when nutrients, when ions are being not absorbed because of the fact that we've had a cup of coffee with a hamburger, right? by 39% reduction, that is such a great deal. Okay. In the same study, they found that drinking tea is a known inhibitor of iron absorption. Tea and coffee are, ironically, seem to be the same. So with the same meal, it reduced iron absorption by 64%. Okay, and another study found that drinking a cup of instant coffee with a bread meal reduced iron absorption by 60 to 90%. So I'm Ghanaian and I love bread. And when I found that out, this particular study blew my mind, because what do? I love my bread, and I don't want to reduce the absorption of, irons, because I'm also anemic, and so I want to make sure that I am getting the nutrients that I need. I've just got a question. My daughter has. Okay, let's just show that. My daughter has dry scalp, and does that have anything to do with nutrition? Dry scalp tends to not, we don't really relate that to nutrition per se, because of the, sorry, I just played with my mic a little bit there, because of the fact that dry scalp is usually because we're not getting a lot of sebum production. So I've discussed sebum production, and I've also discussed how to regulate it. So if we've got dry scalp conditions, with the connection. So if you can see me, please let me know that you can. Okay, so I'm just going to go back to answer the question about the child that is experiencing dry scalp conditions and dry hair. Does that have anything to do with nutrition? So dry scalp conditions are normally cause of just hair care practices, for example, and weather and certain things that we're using, products that we're using. If they're stripping in nature, that can cause dry scalp conditions. If we're applying products and things to the scalp, that can also cause drying. Okay, and if you switch your general hair care, for example, just to something that is more nourishing, that can change that. So addressing dry scalp tends to be something we deal with topically. Okay, so certain treatments such as our Mediceuticals range helps to alleviate some of these feelings of dryness to the scalp. So making sure that the scalp is cleansed properly, ensuring that we are using the right formulation in products for the hair and scalp, but for the scalp especially, is very important. Sometimes when children are going through puberty, we find that the oil production within their system, within their general system, needs to be regulated a little bit. So we need to work out whether this is dry scalp conditions without any associated symptoms. We need to make sure that it's not because there is eczema or there's psoriasis or there are certain things in other areas before we make a good diagnosis. So for this child, if the dryness is just dryness, so if you need to sort of cause some kind of friction to the scalp to reveal that dryness, then it is just dryness. But if it's got flakes, such as, like salt, something that feels like salt grains that come off the scalp, or flakes that are slightly larger, that's not dryness. So we need to make sure that we're doing the right thing for this child, and so that the diagnosis is correct, but it's not just something else. If it's just dryness, we can try and combat that with, making sure that, say, the conditions in the home, the humidity levels are great, and that the child is cleansing their hair and scalp properly with the right products. Dry hair, on the other hand, is something that can cause breakage overall over a long period of time. So you'll notice that the child stops or does not have the ability to retain the length of hair that they're looking for. But with dry hair, again, cleansing the hair, introducing hydration. Hydration has to be in water. So cleansing often is very important. When the hair is dry, most people try to avoid cleaning the hair. But really what you should be doing is cleaning the hair, removing any buildup on the hair. So if the child uses a lot of grease, a lot of oils and butters like shea butter and things like that, you want to clean that properly, thoroughly clean the hair, so that you open up the channels for the nutrients that you put in to actually help. So shampooing would be great at cleaning the hair. So cleaning the scalp, and then by virtue of that, cleaning the hair, maybe going to a professional who can help you to clarify the hair properly, and then use a nice moisturizing treatment. Test the hair. Okay, so the professional would test the hair first and make sure that they're putting the right products in. If you came to see me, we would test the hair before we treat it. We test the hair first by making sure when the hair is cleansed and all the products are removed from the hair, and it has no other contributory factors that will inhibit a successful test, is removed. So that's what we do by cleaning the hair. We then stretch the hair. When it's wet, we remove a few strands of the hair, we stretch it really quite firmly, and then we expect it to return back to where it was. So if the hair stretches and returns, great, that's what we want. It's got great elasticity. It means it's got a great balance of protein and moisture, which is great for making sure that the hair does not become dry. If it struggles to stretch, it means that the hair is lacking in moisture. So if you want to know that your child's hair is dry, the best thing to do is to do these tests. Okay, at some point, hopefully within this month, I will be doing some of these tests to make sure that people can do them and conduct them at home. So for dry hair, when the hair has been cleansed and clarified, making sure that we don't clarify too often, because we're not professionals at home and we don't know how to replenish the hair. So maybe once every 3 months or so, if you engage in clarification of the hair, you then do a wet stretch test when the hair is wet. So when the hair is wet and cleansed, we stretch the hair and we expect it to return back to where it is. So I'm back online, still answering the questions. If you can see me, give me a heart emoji just to let me know that you can see me. Oh, that's my family. Good job, sis. Learnt a lot. Oh, that's so lovely. I'm so happy, Errol. So that's my curve. Unstable here. It just started to rain, and so I'm losing network. So I'm going to go quickly into answering that question about this darling daughter that has got dry scalp and hair, and does it have anything to do with nutrition? Yes, we have got some issues where, in some instances, where nutrition can have an effect, but generally, no. If the child is experiencing dry, itchy, flaky conditions, it's really important for you to identify that. So not just the dryness of the scalp, but we're looking for associated symptoms as well. So other things that are affecting the child, and also is the area itchy and is inflamed. So that is also an important thing to notice and see if she's experiencing that with the hair, we need to make sure that the hair itself is retaining moisture and able to absorb moisture and retain it. So not only just absorbing, but absorb and retain by making sure that we do the tests that are necessary. I mentioned that at some point during these lives, I might start to do some of these tests to let you know and see what you need to look out for when things happen like that. So that's, darling daughter, please just make sure that we are really asking the right questions. So she's experiencing dryness, but we need to make sure that she's also hasn't got any associated symptoms such as inflammation or flaky and itchiness and so on and so forth. But nutrition can have an element to it. It's just that when it's just dryness, we I'm back again. I'm going to keep trying. Really. So if it keeps cutting in and out, we'll just keep trying. So dryness of the hair, we just make sure that we're adding the moisture and the treatments that we need for the hair to be able to withstand that dry conditions. But ultimately, you must try and see a professional just to make sure that there aren't any other underlying issues there, so that the child can be relieved of these feelings of dryness in the scalp and hair. So I'm going to go back to speaking about nutrition and about the studies that found that certain things that we do can limit and inhibit the absorption of nutrients in our foods. Okay, so where possible, avoid trying to take your supplements at the same time as drinking caffeine or alcohol. So we say not an hour before, taking, and not an hour after, right? So you need that window of an hour before and an hour after, and you take your supplements within that time to make sure that these alcohol, caffeine, and so on and so forth, or smoking, for example, does not inhibit the adequate absorption of the nutrients of your foods. So we don't want this negative impact on what we're trying to do to make sure that we are remaining beautiful and healthy. And so I am going back to my notes. Okay, so I want to talk about how to grow hair. So things that we need to do. Things that we need to do to make sure that we're growing hair, and we're making sure that we're giving ourselves the nutrients that our hair needs. Let me start that again. We're giving ourselves the nutrients that our bodies needs, so that there will be vitamin surpluses. So when we're in a surplus of nutrients, our bodies can then take what it needs, and whatever's left over will go towards our hair, scalp, and skin. Okay, so some of the vitamins that you need to be wary of is iron. You need to be wary of the fact that iron is something that we need in surplus, so that we can make sure that we are feeding our hair. Okay, we need to make sure that we are rich in vitamin D, and we've got the vitamin B complexes as well to support that. Right, so vitamin D, we know that it's a provitamin that is already residing in us, and it gets activated by the sun. So you already have vitamin D, but you need to be exposed to the sun. And so the sun will then activate it. But where we don't have a lot of sun, we just make sure that we are taking that supplementation, or to help us have more of those provitamin available to be activated. Then I want to talk about biotin. Biotin is a supplement that's a little bit out there right now. It is regulated heavily in the US, but in the UK, our vitamins are not regulated. And so biotin is a thing that, people can't quite figure out how to deal with. There's a lot of brands that are marketing incorrectly that biotin helps with hair growth, or that it helps you grow hair somehow. That is rather incorrect. We don't have enough evidence to support this. And especially biotin taken in high doses frequently can actually have an adverse effect on certain things, such as the exams that are made to perhaps blood tests that are made to check for heart attacks, for example. So there were some death-related issues with biotin where the markers could not be picked up on blood tests to do with heart issues, because the patients were taking biotin at high doses. Okay, so we don't want those high doses of biotin. A small dose of biotin, fair enough, but also you need to make sure that if you've got any blood tests coming up, you avoid taking biotin up to 8 hours prior to the test that you need to do. So any blood test that you have to conduct, you make sure that biotin intake is not there within your system 8 hours prior to that, because it can affect that. And there has been some deaths that has been related to people who are taking high doses of biotin. But for now, biotin does not really contribute to hair loss that we know. There are no evidence to show that. A low dose of biotin will not cause any harm. But if you're taking huge levels, you need to be mindful of that. Again, I am not your doctor. This is just for educational purposes, just to let you know what this is about. If you have any issues, please consult your doctor. Okay, so don't take biotin alone, and make sure that you are avoiding biotin intake because of its interference with blood tests that help to diagnose heart attack conditions. Okay, now also what biotin does is it can cause hair shedding. So people are taking biotin to make sure that their hair is growing, but then they find that they're shedding hairs because biotin in itself isn't something that we're highly deficient of. Somebody would need, or a patient would need to be tested to find out if they're actually deficient in biotin. It's not something that is regularly a thing that we find in patients, that they are deficient in biotin. So making sure that you are not overdosing on that, and also getting the unwanted, undesirable effects of taking biotin. Okay, we've spoken about caffeine absorption, that when you take it internally, it has a problem with actually helping you absorb nutrients. However, I need to caveat that caffeine on the scalp and on the hair can actually help with stimulating hair growth, which leads me nicely onto the next stage, because I don't want to stay for too long and lose connection. I'm speaking a little bit fast, and I'm sorry. If you can slow down your playback, that would be helpful, but I have to speak as quickly as I possibly can so that we don't lose connection. So how to grow hair to make sure that you have got surpluses. So you are in the vitamin surpluses. You're making sure that you are eating enough and making sure that you're absorbing enough for your organs and your essential organs, and then whatever is left on the outside goes to the hair and scalp and the skin, and you are encouraging blood flow to that hair follicle right to the bulb of the hair, making sure that those nutrients are feeding into that hair bulb. You also need to make sure that you are stimulating your scalp to ensure that you're directing the nutrients to the area. By suppressing and massaging and working into that area of your skin and scalp, you are directing nutrients to that area to aid healing, wound healing, and bringing nutrients to enrich that area of your skin and scalp. And so massaging is really quite important. Using products that are really good at aiming to increase the blood circulation. Certain things like rosemary oil is very good, but I've also discussed in the past that when we're using oils, we make sure that they don't stay on the scalp for too long, and that they are there for treatment purposes only. So you use them as treatment and you wash them off within the hour. Try not to keep it on the scalp for too long. And of course, rosemary oil, I must also caveat, you cannot use that on its own. You cannot use that neat. It has a toxicity effect on the body. So make sure that you are not formulating your own products. You're not being kitchen scientists, and you are buying products that have already been formulated, or you're educated in handling these oils. Okay, so they are essential oils and they're very toxic, and they can cause some damage to the skin, some burns. We have had burns in the skin when people are using neat oils, and they are not being mindful of the things they need to do, or because they just do not have the education to do so. If you buy a product that is formulated for the scalp and it has those ingredients, yes, you can use them, but make sure that you're using them and you're washing them off afterwards, and they do not stay on the scalp for too long. We don't want anything on the scalp left on the scalp unless it's for treatment purposes and well formulated for the scalp. Ideally, your scalp should be free of products. So this goes for the child that is experiencing dry scalp ailments, for example. So what people might do is, oh, my daughter's going through, she's really experiencing dry scalp, I need to do something about it. And then they buy a product that is formulated for dry scalp conditions, for example. That's what the marketing says. And so they buy the product and they put it on. Sometimes what I have mentioned is that brands incorrectly market their products by not giving people the right advice to make sure that they are going to get the desirable cosmetic significance in the product that they're using. And so they don't tell you to wash it off. They don't tell you that these products cannot be left on for a prolonged period of time. And what happens after that has been left on for too long is actually an adverse reaction, which means that you're trying to treat a dryness issue, but then you find that the skin and the scalp becomes dry because of the fact that the product is too strong and cannot be left on for too long. So don't formulate your own products. Make sure the products that you buy that are even if it claims that it's for the scalp and you don't know what to do to check up on that, when you do place it on the scalp, do not leave it on all day or forever in a day. It must stay on only for a short period of time, and then you rinse it off. Because naturally, these products even stop working after a period of time anyway. These are the products that are even well formulated. So can you just imagine on products that aren't well formulated, would they even have any significant effect on the scalp when left on the scalp for a long period of time, for a prolonged period of time? Okay. I will discuss the rest of the matters later or on another day, tomorrow perhaps. But for now, I just want to recap what we've discussed today, how to make sure that you are taking the nutrients that you take into your body and making sure that the absorption rate is optimized for beautifying yourself. So as we know, health is beauty. We want to make sure that anything we do health-wise, we are retaining and we are not losing that by eating certain things complementary to our foods, such as caffeine, smoking, or drinking alcohol. If you must do so, an hour outside of the consumption of the highly nutritious foods, and so that you can really harness that high absorption rate. We spoke about biotin and its effects on certain things, such as blood tests that are to find out if patients are suffering from heart attacks and things like that, and how it interferes with those tests. Okay, so high doses of biotin is not essential for hair growth. If anyone tells you that, we do not have enough evidence to support it. So we must be careful that biotin is not consumed, especially at high doses. And if you're going to have blood tests, because of the interference levels of the biotin that you take, you make sure that you're taking biotin at least 8 hours before. You allow 8 hours window before you take the test, so that it doesn't interfere with that. But really, just avoid taking biotin for the purpose of hair growth, okay? Unless somebody tells you that you're biotin deficient, for example. We spoke about caffeine absorption in the body, and then caffeine perhaps using topically onto the hair, and how it actually helps to stimulate blood flow and things like that within the scalp. And so it's about finding that balance of how to use caffeine. When I have an updated opinion on the matter, I will address that in the following lives to come. Then we addressed, dry scalp conditions with a person, somebody who actually put a question up about their child, and spoke about those associated effects to make sure that the associated symptoms aren't being ignored, because they help us get a proper positive diagnosis of what is going on with your hair and scalp. Making sure that those tests are being conducted at good intervals, making sure the hair is cleansed properly so that we can actually infuse the hair with the nutrients that it needs. I've also discussed that the hair that grows out of your scalp is dead. So everything you need to do to make sure that you are retaining length and looking after your hair must come from the external sources into the hair. So by using products and using techniques that help us to make sure that we retain moisture in the hair and look after the hair to retain length. Scalp issues, we're looking for flakiness, we're looking for itchy, inflammation. We must ask the child what is going on with them so that they can give us the right information for us to diagnose properly. But ultimately, see a professional so that that child can be helped properly. Okay, and I think that will be it for me today. Thank you for sticking by. Thank you so much for being patient with me, and the connection issues that we had was just not good. And so well done for sticking by, and thank you for joining me. Again, my name is Desiree Djanie. If you're looking for my services and treatments, you can find me on social media, but also at my clinic on Instagram or TikTok at Vegan Hair Salon UK. Okay, on that note, I'm going to say all my love, goodbye, and good night.